Knocking doors down, and we've got Cody with us. What's going on, my brother?
Hey, bud, what's going on?
Nothing. Funny thing, we were joking before we started recording. This is our second time jumping on here, but the previous time some wind chimes fucked up the audio. So we're joking about we've hit that age of having wind chimes.
Yeah, that's kind of embarrassing, but whatever, man. It makes it sound nice and tranquil around here.
Hey man, it sounded peaceful on your end, so
Right?
you got that.
It's definitely a peaceful environment. Not good for podcasting.
Well, thanks for joining us. We know that not only has Cody been a busy man in the industry he works in, but newly a father, beautiful kiddo, and a beautiful family in general. And so we definitely appreciate it very much. But how the hell you hanging in there, man? I know that pandemic, all this, people locked down, still doing obviously good. Long-term sobriety. You're at how many years now?
11. It's 11 years now. Just turned 11 in November.
Nice, congratulations, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's been I don't know. I'm holding it together. I think, I could be insane and nobody's told me, but I think I'm kind of holding it together fairly well. I get stir crazy, but thankfully they kind of opened everything up here, and I don't know. I don't know why I guess the COVID thing hasn't really changed so much, but so I'm able to get out a little bit more, go to some in-person meetings, and that's oh God, how nice is it to actually go be in a room with people that want to get well.
So. Yeah, I know. I've been looking around here for which ones are opening up, and there was one like a 6:30 a.m. meeting. It's like, okay, I got to go from being a night owl. I need in-person meetings. I need it. I'm going to have to do it. I don't care if I stumble out of bed at 6 o'clock, throw on sweatpants, but at least I walk in and, get that in-person contact.
Yeah. Who would have thought that you get sober and still be up at 6 o'clock in the morning? I thought I was going to rest better.
No, that shit hasn't changed for me at all. I'm still waiting for that person that's figured that thing out, You're
just waking up hydrated and without the headache now.
Right?
That's the only difference. You wake up and you could wake up and not drag yourself out of bed. You can get up normally, I guess.
Or the inevitable for those that either you've done your drunken moments, or you're like Cody and I and doing the meetings and the work where you don't have to piece together the night before and the what the fuck did I do, or the where am I, or any of that stuff.
You know how I used to do that? I just look at my phone. You ever do that where you wake up in the morning and you're like, what was that? And you whip open your phone and you start seeing all the people you text and you're like, oh my God, what was I doing?
You know what I used to do, dude? I used to put in my notes, this is what happened that night. Like if anything stood out that I thought was crazy, I would write it in my notes before I fell asleep. So when I woke up, I'd read them and be like, oh, that wasn't that bad. I must have thought it was worse at the time or something like that. But I know exactly what you're talking about. Check your call log, see who you called, text.
How many exes were you calling in one night? Like, what are you doing? Right?
How many people in my little black book did I dip into on this time?
Can you imagine looking at that notes? They're all written shorthand, like Bobby, fire, gasoline.
Oh,
what that means, but
stolen car, 12:42 a.m. Right. Wait, what? I stole a car?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. Don't miss that shit at all. Thank goodness. But of course, a little background on Cody. Working in the entertainment industry. With one of essentially the biggest rock bands in the world, Five Finger Death Punch. Kind of how you and I came about, roughly, to get to know each other. I mean, how are you functioning within the work world right now with all this going on?
Well, my capacity with the band has definitely changed. I haven't been on tour in the last, year and a half or so. And mainly been able to work from home, And so when I kind of came off the road, I had a career before going into, the music industry and working for them. And, it's funny, people make fun of me because I've never done a band tour, right? It's always private jets and brand new buses and a 5-star hotel. So I'm kind of a bougie tour. I'm not going to go lay in a van with 9 other dudes. And so, it was a mistake. It was an accident how I got into that, right? It was kind of a time and place thing. And so essentially I was able to kind of go back into a career that I had already started, quite a while down the road. And that's what I've been doing. And, by the grace of God, I've been gainfully employed this whole time. And, I haven't had to feel the financial burdens that so many people out there are feeling right now. It's devastating when you see all these small businesses close, man. And like I've owned businesses and man, you put your life and soul. I mean, you hedge your entire life on this one thing. And so I'm blessed, man. I'm working.
When this whole thing first started, did that cross your mind? Like, oh shit, my job, my, financial well-being is kind of in jeopardy, or maybe in jeopardy, or what was going through your mind when everything first shut down?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I had to furlough like 35 people. Mm-hmm. So I think it was always in the back of my mind, like something's going to change here or something could happen. Mm-hmm. Thankfully it didn't. I've been in leadership roles for the majority of my career with large areas of responsibility and large teams under me. So they would kind of have to fold up, a whole division, if you will, in order to, probably shake me up or. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't super worried, but I mean, it was definitely a present, just like that kind of popcorn kernel stuck in your tooth type anxiety. Like, man, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right.
Thankfully it didn't. And I've been able to kind of trudge that road moving forward. So what a blessing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me ask you, as we've mentioned, being out there with one of the biggest bands, over the last decade, with several members that have definitely highlighted, come out and spoken, obviously Chris Cale, Ivan Moody, about their addiction and substance issues. How did you, being out there on the road, not only with that band, members of it that were using substances, but just kind of in general in the rock world with people that were, struggling with substance abuse and maintaining your sobriety? Because once you went into kind of working in that, you were already sober, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was, I want to say I was 6 years sober when I went into that, 5 years, something like that. In fact, I celebrated, I remember celebrating my 7th AA birthday. I think we were in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and it was, we were in catering. That was my big 7th sobriety dinner. And it was me and, I want to say it was Zoltan and Nikki Six sitting at this table, and they didn't even know, but so I think that by the grace of God, most of the guys are older, and so there was a couple of them that legitimately struggled with it, and it was at the height of Ivan's. I mean, he really struggled with alcohol. I mean, it was public, and I mean, just Google it, and so that was really tough for me to see, knowing what he went through, and knowing what people like us struggle with, and so that was really tough. It was also really eye-opening when you see who's involved in enabling it, right? Yeah. And you're like, whoa, right? Like, this guy is on the verge, man. And so I in my capacity, most of my communication was through Zoltan, and he never drinks. I think I've seen him drink maybe twice, and one of the times I have a picture, and it's kind of funny. I don't think he would appreciate it, but you think it was funny nonetheless. And so I tended to stay out of any real scrapes like that. And then there's guys on the cruise, that are sober. And so we'll throw together a ragtag meeting on the, backstage somewhere on the dock, or, something like that, with some roadies. And, we'll do stuff like that. I used to go to meetings, in Bismarck, North Dakota, if we had a day off. and places like that. So I was able to, you know, kind of stay out of any real scrapes. And I was sober enough to know when, you know, when that kind of shit starts, dude, I'm out, right? Like,
Yeah,
I'm out.
for sure.
Dude, I don't need to get arrested in Portland, Maine. And I know that's where this is going. And so, you know, Five Fingers of, they kind of have at least at the time, and I'm pretty sure now, you know, they don't put up with that kind of stuff. And so kind of had a no chemical policy. You know, of course there was a couple of members that struggled, you know, Kale, obviously, you know, I think he's 3 years sober. You know, he just took 3 years. And I remember him doing what he did, and you know, there's not much you can say. So, you know, congratulations to him. And it's wild to see Ivan where he is today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, what you saw was only like a glimpse of what that guy really struggled with. So I'm so proud of him. And, you know, we talked quite a bit. So
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. And it was so much of it for, you know, as you're in the spotlight, that it was so much out there. And you know, for me, it was, of course, going through what I've gone through and not being one of those people of judgment, but more empathy. It was just like, I don't care if he ever sings another note. I just don't want to see another person die from addiction, you know?
yeah, I mean, there was plenty of nights where I was like, uh-oh, right? And there was times where I'd walk on the bus and just go, man, please don't be dead, right? I don't want to be that guy that found him, you know, laying on a bus or something. And, you know, by the grace of God, I didn't. But there were some scary moments, you know, with his health. You know, there was obviously, you know, we got Phil from All That Remains out there once, and that was because, you know, the guy hit the wall, and it was like, dude, you know, forget everything else. Let's make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm just grateful for that, man. I didn't have to experience anything. There was definitely a few times though where I was like backstage watching the show, going, man, this is coming. I'm watching this come apart.
Yeah, fuck.
God.
Well, let's go back to your story, Cody. Well, tell us a little bit, you know, about childhood and really, you know, where substance abuse started for you. Was it a, you know, a family history of it? And
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everybody in my family struggles with this, right? And, you know, my mom is 33 years sober. My dad's been sober off and on pretty much my whole life. About a year and a half ago, we found one of my cousins face down in a gutter dead. He struggled with this. You know, my uncle, just about everybody in my family, they all struggle with it on both sides. And so I come by it honestly, that's for sure. Thanks for my inheritance, I guess. And you know, I grew up in a, you know, we were, you know, borderline poverty. I remember we only had 3 walls on our home. We had one wall was a blue tarp, and so and we lived in this canyon, and we used to get all sorts of strange critters, rattlesnakes and tarantulas and scorpions that would come in the house. And
fuck that.
And so and then, you know, I remember one of my earliest memories is as a child was my mom and her boyfriend beating each other up, man. And I can remember even then, you know, 3 or 4 years old thinking like, that something's wrong here, man. Like, that's not normal. And so, yeah, that was my early childhood. And my mom got sober when I was 5 and kind of carted me around to AA meetings. And so I kind of had this strange upbringing, man, but here I am, right?
So you've been around it and all that, like you said, all your family has gone through it. Did you ever, when you were little, say, man, I'm never getting involved in this shit? Once you figured out what it was, like I'm sure at 3 and 4, you didn't realize it was alcohol and drugs. You just thought something was wrong, but you didn't know what. But once you figured out that it was substances and substances abuse, did it ever cross your mind like, fuck it, I'm never doing that ever?
No, I mean, you know, I all I can remember is, you know, really the feeling of Alcoholics Anonymous, man, and you know, and that's where I go to AA, and that's, you know, that's kind of where I grew up. And I remember the people that were great, man. And
right.
You know, I went from having like no friends, and now we had all these great people around, and right. So to me, it was almost more of a social thing, and I never connected that with the drinking. And so, it was never like I'm never going to drink. I don't want to be like that, because I didn't, when my mom got sober, I didn't connect her drinking with the things that I was witness to, and so there's a big disconnect in there. And so all I know, early life was really, chaos, and after she got sober, it was less chaos. I mean, we still had chaos, because
Sure.
what do you get when you take the booze from a drunken horse thief, man? You got a silver horse thief. So she
Right.
horses every now and again. And so, we had a little bit of chaos, but it got exponentially better. And so, no, when I started drinking, it was because I wanted to be social, and I wanted to drink.
Sure.
So did you find that because of, your social economic status and upbringing and stuff, were you kind of always an outcast as a kid then in that situation?
Oh yeah, completely. I was always, I always kind of felt like I didn't really fit in with everybody. Like, it was a little bit more difficult for me to make friends with kids at school. It was, I never kind of found my group. I was never that person that could just, get in. And so, yeah, absolutely. That was a huge struggle for me.
Did you have any other circumstances? I know for me, like we were talking off air, a learning disability too, that kind of, in addition to being an odd kid, having an addict parent, that also contributed to my ability to kind of connect with other people in a normal way.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I was in, I mean, I got diagnosed with like ADHD back in like 86, and they didn't know anything about it. Right. And so they were giving me like Ritalin, like the max dose at 5 years old. And so because of that, school districts didn't know what to do with, kids like me. So they all shoved me in special ed. Right. And so, nothing says I'm cool like riding the short bus to school, and I rode the short bus,
Right.
So in a time when, you're trying to, be unique without standing out, I stood out for all the wrong reasons. And nobody wanted to, have a conversation with me. And so a lot of my friends, maybe that's why I feel so safe and, and welcome in AA, because there's some fucked up, sick people, man. But most of my early friends were like a little twisted, man, because they were the only other kids in class that I could talk to, and so it didn't really center me socially, I guess. So yeah, I mean, that was definitely an issue, 100%, and maybe one that I still struggle with today. I think I'm an extroverted introvert, right? And so, I might appear as though I'm outgoing, but it's just to mask the anxiety that I have, sitting in my chest.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. Well, I understand that of, almost going out and going into persona mode just to kind of know how to navigate with people. It's not so much for those listening that don't suffer from addiction, oftentimes we're totally people pleasers. And it's not being a people pleaser as much as it is wearing the comfortable mask just so you can kind of get through and be jovial and then get back to your safe haven of being an introvert.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that, it's I can play a bunch of different roles because I got to be a chameleon with everybody, right? And so, you guys probably can do that too, right? It's a survival thing for us, right? Like, I need to just like kind of disappear here and not stick out. And so if I can do that in all these different groups, I can play all these different roles, and you would never know. And that's probably why you guys are doing what you're doing right now. That's why you're so good with connecting with people. And you're doing this podcast. You can connect with anybody because it's a learned behavior. You had to.
Yeah.
And so, that I don't know if that necessarily gets rid of the anxiety that comes with it. I don't think that's ever going to go. When I walk into a room full of people, I still feel all alone, and so, I wear it, man.
I think that's one of the cool things for anyone that might be listening and maybe hesitant on any sort of of group being a part of their recovery is that you can walk into an AA or an NA, or I don't care, maybe it's a sexual addicts or whatever it is. And the guarantee is that everybody in that room is there for the same fucking reason. And you all have at least that in common, and you can go,
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I love, going to meetings. It's in-person meetings, right? Zoom is great, but it's kind of like, bathtub crank. It'll get you by, but it won't. It doesn't quite satisfy. Mikey's smiling. He knows what's up. And so getting into a room with people and just to feel that energy, like, hey, man, it's kind of a safe place, man. There's only two places I've ever felt comfortable in my entire life, man. And that is a bar or a room of Alcoholics Anonymous, man. And so, man, I love it. It's I finally feel like, okay, man, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. So for you, about what age did you start using any substances, and then subsequently, the series of the wheels falling off? I know you had many infractions.
I mean, in my 20s, it was pretty bad. And even in my teens, I guess, I started drinking when I was, 13 years old. I was in junior high and still in special ed, still had to take the short bus, at junior high, you're really trying to find an identity, right? Like, what am I? Who am I? How do I feel? And so, like I said, we grew up real poor. That didn't change for the majority of my life. It's very different now, but, and so, my mom was still dressing me, and, at 13 years old, and the clothes I had were, my grandmother made. And so, I remember this kid that was kind of one of the cooler kids at school. We had a class or two together. And so he had said something to me about like, hey, you want to go hang out here? We're going to have like this party thing, man. And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, dude, I'm in.
Yeah.
And then I had to figure out what to wear. Right. It's pretty funny. My first drink, and people always laugh at me. I mean, imagine this. I was 13 years old. I was just, I surfed a lot. I grew up, on the beach. And so, but that didn't make me cool by any means. I had these plaid shorts that were like golfer yellow plaid. They were like way above the knee, which is so uncool back then. In like 96, man. Anything above the knee, that's like, dude, what are you? And
now that shit is in.
Right now, right?
you were a fucking trendsetter, ahead of the curve.
Trailblazer, baby, trailblazer.
And so it's funny because I was sagging these things down to like, it's so low, man. It was so uncool. And I had this yellow sweater on that said, Cody is and it had a shooting star in puffy paint that my grandma made for me. And that was my outfit for my party, junior high / high school party. And I remember walking into this place, like totally, like almost paralyzed with fear, but like, I just had to figure out what was going on. And so someone gave me a beer, man. And that was the social lubricant. That's all it took. I walked in that place. Nobody wanted to talk to me. After a couple beers, they were all my friends. And not like good friends. They really wanted to know everything about me, man, and be a part of my life. And so that's the way it started.
Did school change for you after that? Was it different the next day and all that? Being with all the cool kids, drinking, all that good stuff?
Yeah, it was kind of, I learned real quickly how to kind of fit into that group, and I did. I think about a year later, I was 14 and in 10th grade, and my parents caught me drunk, and I was talking about my son earlier, and I was struggling still emotionally and with anxiety. I remember one day my dad, I was going to, and I never will forget this, man. I remember when Metallica released Load.
Yes.
I love Metallica. that album's okay, I guess. But
there's some great songs on it, man. I'm one of those guys. I fucking like all of them. Even Saint Anger's got badass songs.
Saint Anger's full of like Load and Reload. I'm like, ugh. But anyhow, they were playing in San Diego on that album cycle, and so I was going to a show with a buddy of mine. My dad goes, "Hey man, we're gonna stop by your mom's real quick," and I was like, "Okay." And so we stopped by, and she's like, "We're checking you into a rehab, and you're going to be locked down for the foreseeable future."
What age was that?
I was 14. So like within a year, my drinking was already a problem.
Damn.
And so off to rehab I went, and essentially ended my normal high school career, if you will.
Right.
I spent the rest of my time in rehabs and lockdowns, and yeah, I even won over in the last one I was there from 98 to 99 was Provo Canyon School. It was in Utah, and I don't know if you've seen, Paris Hilton just released a documentary about it.
Yeah.
And I was there with her, and I don't know how great that documentary is. I watched it. I didn't, I'll just say that a lot of the stuff she said is not wrong. I took my fair share of ass whippings from the counselor. But that was essentially, from 14 until 18, I was locked up. I even managed to get myself arrested for Grand Theft Auto.
Okay.
That's not fun, whatever.
You can't just tell us you stole the car during that time and not give us the story.
Yeah, I was just kidding about that earlier. I didn't know you really did it.
No, man, I stole a car. It was funny. I ran away from this. It was a RTC residential treatment center out in Southern California, a place called Ramona. And I'd managed to meet a girl in there, and like anybody with their rehab romances, man, we were in love, right? And so we ran away from that place, and I ended up stealing a car. And I should have known, man, I'm not a very good criminal. I get caught quite a bit. And so the cops were watching the car, man, and they got me. I wrecked it into 3 other parked cars, and like they whooped my ass, and off to juvenile hall I went. And then from there is when that's how I ended up going to Provo Canyon School.
Come on, man, hitting 3 cars isn't exactly incognito. You're not blending in.
So wait, the cops are watching this car. Tell me it was like a cool like Corvette or something, and not a fucking like an AMC Pacer or some piece of shit.
No, man, it was a Volkswagen Jetta. It was gold.
Right.
It wasn't even like anything cool, man. And I don't even know what the only reason I didn't steal it, I stole it because I wanted to ride, man. Like that tells you how fucked off my thinking was back then, but I needed a ride. So yeah, hey.
Wouldn't have happened if we had Uber back then.
So right? God damn it. Yeah, it's technology coming too late. So you end up in this place, this facility in Utah, the Paris Hilton is also there. So are they kind of like, was this like a center for, wealthy kids that got sent, as well as, yours is kind of like a quote unquote scholarship or a free, or they had to kind of intake, the spectrum? I mean, it just sounds odd.
It was basically a school for kids that were flight risks. I was running away from a lot of rehabs because, man, I just don't jail very well, man. Like if you lock me up into it, I can't do it. Like something inside me just like I crawl out of my skin. But there was a lot of, my roommate was his parents were billionaires. They own one of the largest investment firms on the planet, there was a couple other really wealthy kids. There was anyway, I don't want to say that. I probably shouldn't say their names, but Paris was there and she said it, so that's she was there. But it was for kids that were their parents didn't know what to do with them, and it was a brutal facility, man. And I'm the vice principal of the school, and I still talk to him. And he was a big reason why I was able to get out of there, man. He was a great man and helped me graduate high school, thank God. Yeah, man, I'm not even kidding. They would whoop your ass, not soft, for like, you'd have to walk in a single file line. And if you step out of line, they're right there to check you.
That's fucking bananas. What year is this in?
It was 98, 99. Yeah, I graduated in 99, which is cool because I tell people on my resume that I graduated second in my class, and it was a class of 2. I can still claim it,
so when you first got sent here at the age of 14, what was your mindset? Were you pissed off at your parents for sending you there? Or were you kind of just like, all right, fuck it, let's do it?
No, I mean, I thought and acted alcoholically long before I was actually an alcoholic. And so, I got here like, I don't even know what the big deal is, man. I like to hang out with my friends. Like, what's the problem? I couldn't grasp how poorly my decision-making skills were and my behavior,
right,
and how it affected others. And so, when it was called San Luis Rey, that was where they checked me into the first time. And, I remember going in, and it was like, dude, it was crazy. It was I thought I was the sanest person there, but I always do anyways. And so, there was this kid that was smashing his head against the wall. There was this girl that was screaming, just cut my head off. Like, and I'm like sitting there like going, here, like this is the solution, huh? Okay. And so I went and did the 3 weeks of that, and then I did 6 weeks of aftercare that was, outpatient but intensive. So I was there all day, and then I'd go home at night, and then they sent me back to high school. Within a few weeks, they yanked me back out and put me back in, and that was my last experience with normal high school, man. After that, I went on to some phase 2 program, and from there it was residential.
The Knockin' Doorz Down autobiography by Carlos Vieira. It takes you deep into his destructive past and how racing saved his life and opened the door to give back to the community. And 100% of the sales go directly to the Carlos Vieira Foundation, an organization committed to raising awareness for addiction, mental health, and autism. And for inspiration and motivation, tune in weekly to the podcast every Thursday for real-life episodes from celebrities and local heroes. Get Knockin' Doorz Down today at kddmediacompany.com or Amazon.
So you've graduated high school. What does life look like then?
I mean, it was, we were talking about my son earlier, and I can understand their perspective of being scared, I guess. And if you look at it like, hey, I graduated high school and I got through my adolescence alive, then, hey, flying colors, good job. But what it really did for me is like, I turned 18. I ended up graduating shortly after that. So I could have signed myself out, but I stayed, just, might as well stay the extra few months and graduate. And so, when I came home, it was like the handcuffs were off, man.
Right.
And it only took me a few months to, I started hanging out with, those people that you don't want you shouldn't be hanging out with. I was going to those places. I wasn't drinking yet. I was still kind of going to, AA at the time a little bit. But eventually, half measures availed us nothing. And I was a half measure for sure. And I drank. And that started I think I was 20 years old. And when I finally drank, I managed to scrape together a year somehow outside. But that sent me on the ride, man. And boy, it was a ride.
Well, how long did the ride continue until you got sobriety, and what were some of the subsequent, negative pinpoints throughout that ride until sobriety finally, took hold, where it was like, fuck it, I gotta, or I'm gonna be dead.
So it was never like to me, it wasn't a life or death thing. Now I realize, what it is that I was, playing with, right? Like a kid that found his dad's gun, just, waving it around. What could have happened. And so I drank in my 20s. I got sober at 28. In that time, it was, pretty quickly, I was struggling keeping a job, right? Making any real money. I was struggling, you know, taking care of myself. And so I had to learn how to kind of hustle my way through life, which, you know, I think, you know, both of you can relate to that. And it's just, you know, it's survival, right? I'm hustling my way into that room I know my buddy's got a spare room. Let me rent that thing for as long as he'll put up with my shit. You know, and you're just kind of hopscotching jobs and hopscotching friends and couches. And, you know, you almost always have a different car and a different phone number. And so, I mean, it was stuff like that. And then, you know, I started getting arrested a whole lot. I think I was arrested over 80 times.
Oh, shit.
Well,
Yeah.
for what, like fighting, stuff like that, or drunk in Publix, or?
A lot of fighting, but you know, it's funny. It was all drunk in public and DUI. So I got at the height of it, I had 7 DUIs. And it was a lot of fighting and just being in dumb areas that I shouldn't be. And, you know, by the grace of God, I was never charged with assault or anything strange like that. And, you know, they always just, you know, break it up and take us to, you know, spin dry us for the night and send us out. And so,
Right.
you know, it was just a lot of shit like that, man. It was just constant. And so I was constantly getting DUIs. And I'm like not an accountable person, dude. Like unless you sit me down and like make me accountable, I'm not gonna, you know, here's your court date. Like my parents can't get me to listen. Who are you? Right. You know? And so I never showed up to court, man. And so I had all these bench warrants all over the place, and it's crazy. Like, you know, they would arrest me for a drunk in public, and they'd be like, dude, you got warrants everywhere, or fighting or whatever it was. And, you know, they go, okay, man, we're going to give you a new court date for all these warrants. You got to appear. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll appear. I'm like, the second.
Count me in, bro. See you there.
Right? Like, I'm not coming back. And so I got released on bail one time. And so I had this bail bondsman, bond agent hunting me down. He was going to all these places, but I'd get this call from a friend like, dude, there's this like bail bondsman here that's like trying to arrest you, man. Like, just FYI. And so I knew they were coming, and then I'd take off or something. And
did he have a blonde mullet?
No, it was never the dog, man. I would totally get arrested by the dog, man. That'd be great, because he'd give you a pep talk and a cigarette on the way in. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, I forgot about that.
At least I could bum a free cig, huh?
He was cool about it. He would give him a cigarette and stuff, huh?
Yeah, man. Like, after he got you in the car, he was chill, right?
Super chill.
He was a total prick. But after he got you in the car, he's like, he talked to you about God, and like, hey man, let's get well, dude. Like, call me. I want to help you.
You good? You want to smoke? And they're looking at him like, you just fucking speared me into a wall. Now you're giving me a cigarette?
Pepper spray,
Yeah, it was a pepper spray of love.
right, exactly.
Fuck.
So, no, but I remember one time I was staying with my dad, and I got the call that there was a bail bondsman had just left my ex-girlfriend's house, and literally 3 minutes later, boom, 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 they're at my door now, and I'm like, oh shit. So my dad is sitting there like with half his face shaved, shaving cream on the other half, in like what looks like tidy whities, right? Standing at the door, yelling at him, saying, he's not fucking here, right? I'm going, better not fucking tell him I'm here, man. Like, what kind of chaos to put my parents through, you know?
Yeah, no, I know that, you know, my dad getting the call from the bail bondsman, you know, I mean, I think you put it best in one of our personal conversations, was if life was truly fair, thank goodness it isn't, I would have been arrested a lot more than I was. But
man, if life was fair, I'd still be in prison right now, man. Because I only got, you know, I always make the joke, like, apparently I'm not very good at drunk driving because I get caught all the time. But the reality is I drove drunk for nearly a decade, and I only got caught 7 times. So odds are, right, that, you know, I'm not going to get caught. But I drove drunk for a decade. You know, and if I got a DUI, if life was actually fair, right, and when justice is due, if I had to pay the piper, I'd have, you know, 10,000 DUIs, or 3,000 DUIs, and I'd be in prison for the rest of my life, man. So I'm glad life's not fair, right?
I was gonna say, what's the longest stint you've ever done in prison?
So 47 days, because
isn't that 7 DUIs?
Yeah, so check this out. This is the strangest thing that ever happened, man. And, you know, subsequently, it was my moment of surrender. I got arrested. My sobriety date is November 14th, 2009. I was arrested on November 13th. And so I always ask people, like, what happened the day before you got sober? Like, that's what I want to know, right? And so I got arrested. I was walking into a bar. And for whatever reason, like, I'm pretty chatty when I'm drunk, and clearly not the best decision maker. And there's a bunch of cops sitting there. And so I was like, hey, man, let's have a chat. And so I knew it was going to be a rough night when they asked me for my ID. And so, because, you know, run my name, I'm probably headed with you. And so, you know, they were just going to, I remember, you know, it's funny when you've been arrested enough times to where you know the law, and you're like, hey, man, you could just cite release me. The law states you shall, which gives you some leeway. And so they were like, no, we're gonna book you and then release you. And I was like, all right, whatever. Another night, you know, spend the night in jail. And so, but it was always this brutal anxiety. Like, if they ever decided, right, to actually make me see the judge right then, right, instead of just releasing me and giving me a court date. Well, on November 13th, that's what's happened, right? I always make the joke that my sobriety date was gifted to me by a guardian angel disguised as a sheriff. And I got into central booking, and they, you know, they said, we're just going to cite release him. And the guy behind the counter says, no, we're going to keep him. And I was like, oh shit. Like, all of a sudden, you ever just like totally sober up?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So I was like, oh shit. And the realization had come real hard, real fast, that like, I'm probably not leaving here for a long time, like a really long time, knowing that I had 7 DUIs that I hadn't appeared on. And so I called a bail bondsman. This is funny. It's funny and it's not, but it was my moment of surrender, if you will. I called this bail bondsman, and my dad had inherited this airplane from my grandfather, and you know, they're all pilots, and I convinced the bail bondsman to take my dad's plane as collateral, knowing that I was not going to court, right? Like, I'm not going to court because I know what's going to happen to me. And so he goes, call me back in 15 minutes, and you know, let me talk with my boss, because we've never done an airplane, right? And so I call him back, and he says, yeah, we'll do it. You just got to be here within 24 hours with the paperwork. And so I remember thinking right then, like, man, maybe if I don't do this, I don't ever have to deal with this again, right? That was the only thought that went in. And I just said, hey, man, I think I'm going to hang out here for a little bit. And I hung up the phone. And that was the first time that I ever just kind of went like, all right, man, like, whatever you want. I just don't want to do this. I don't want to be running from bail bondsmen. I don't want to be constantly arrested. I don't want to live like this. And so I ended up going before the judge. And God, you know what's horrible? The 3 or 4 days before you go to court, and all the guys in jail will give you an opinion on what you're going to get sentenced to. So it's everything from like, yeah, they're just going to release you, to like, oh no, a buddy of mine got like 12 years for that. Oh my God, dude.
Like, all right. Nobody fucking talk to me. Just let me think.
Everybody's a, you know, jailhouse paralegal. And so,
5150 Apparel, lifestyle with a purpose.
in a strange, scenario, I had never been convicted. So the law, somehow I had to be convicted as a first-time offender. And so I ended up not going to prison, but I got a 40-month suspended prison term, of which, because I was a habitual offender, I would have to do like 90% of that. And so, but that they were going to make me serve 180 days right then, plus all these horrible fines, 100 days of house arrest once I was released. And so of that 180 days, I did 47, and they released me on December 21st, just because I was a non-violent offender. And so that was how I got out of that. I remember spending the entire 47 days in jail, thinking, I got to quit drinking, man.
Yeah.
And because you have time to reflect in there, you don't got much time to do anything else.
That's all you got, man.
Right?
Time. That's all you got in there.
You think, you eat, you play chess, and that's it. That's your life, man. And so I don't, like I said, I don't jail well, man. It was a scary experience knowing that if I screw this up, I gotta sit here. I don't think I would survive that. And, maybe I would physically survive, but I would not be the same person leaving prison that I was going in. And so I remember sitting there thinking, like, reflecting on my life, like, dude, everything that I've ever been in trouble for was alcohol related. Like, alcohol was involved. And so, hey, I'm gonna quit drinking. And so the moment they released me, the door shut behind me, I had $12 in my pocket. My first thought was, there's a USA gas station right here, man. I bet you I can get a couple tall boys, and, I just need to get well for a minute. I just need some of this to blow over. Right. And so that terrified me. The second that thought hit my mind, I knew I'm going to go serve that prison sentence. Right. It is inevitable. I am going to serve that prison sentence. My life is forever going to be different. And I will not have the life that I want to have. And so I called my dad at the time. He was sober at that time, thank God. And I said, man, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. And he goes, I'll take you to a meeting. And I was like, fucking AA, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Oh, those stories we tell ourselves, right?
It's so funny, man. Like, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to go to prison. I just need help. And it's like, wait, let's go to AA. And it's like, whoa, not that bad, dude. Simmer down.
Yeah. Because that subsequent possibility of that longevity of being confined to a space as opposed to a 1 hour meeting or something. Oh yeah, no way.
No,
I'm not going to do that.
Absolutely not. And so I went to that meeting, and that was December, I think 22nd. I remember hearing my first kind of round of sobriety when I was a kid. This guy said, if you're not into a meeting within 24 hours of getting released from rehab or jail, then you're fucked. And I didn't want to be fucked. So I went to a meeting, and 11 years later, here I am.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, during the whole time of all the alcohol use, I'm sure drugs came into play every now and again, but it was obviously mainly, I'm sorry?
It wasn't every now and again. That was a constant, man. I love cocaine.
Okay, I was going to say, so there had to have been more than just alcohol. Was there anything, so cocaine is what it was then?
No, I mean, it was pretty much, I don't get into that, my drunk log of that so much, right? But, I've done enough cocaine to sink a ship probably twice.
Air five me, buddy.
That's right.
I hear you. But we're past it now.
Right? God, cocaine is amazing. But I've done enough of that stuff. There was about a year and a half in there where I was smoking an absolute ton of meth.
Yeah.
And I'd gotten this job with this absolute lunatic. In fact, we used to like beat each other up. He was my boss. We'd like beat each other up anytime it's strange, but it was in an office building, and he had this office. He had the whole downstairs rented and half the top stairs of this kind of office complex. And I built like an apartment out of cubicle squares in the the unoccupied section of the second floor, and I was living in it, right? And I was as happy as can be. I was happy. I used to bring girls back there, man. Like, fucking, like, this is the crazy shit we get into, man. And I was hanging out with those people, like smoking meth, and I never smoked crack, but I learned how to freebase cocaine. So is that kind of the same thing?
It's pretty much the same thing. I smoked crack once, liked it, so I never did it again because I was like, I'm not gonna get into that. A way I would talk about cocaine is it's the champagne of drugs, dude. Celebrities
absolutely
do this. Rock stars do this. It's okay.
It's
Coke is fine, but meth, I did that probably a handful of times, and I just felt dirty. No judgment on anyone who does it. I've done it too. You know what I mean? But it was just like, this shit is, I like it. I got to stop because I like it. So luckily I was able to pull myself out, as were you. So
yeah, my first time doing meth was, I did, this is gross. The first time I did meth was off the toilet seat at a casino with my buddy, dude.
Dude, I can't tell you how many lines have been done off toilet seats. It's disgusting, but it happens. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Yeah. Gross. Cocaine was great, man. That's the champagne of beers, man. Nose beers.
Yeah, champagne of nose beers, absolutely.
Right.
That's what made ourselves feel better about it. Like, no, dude, it's cool. Kidding me? Everybody does this.
That reminds me of the time I counted out change because it's all I had in my life, money-wise, $0 in checking and savings, but I had enough change to buy the Miller High Life, the champagne of beers.
Yeah.
Like how fucking sad you get. You're counting out the change, and for the 10 people in the line behind you, you're that much of a dick, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Do you remember those? This is kind of funny, but do you remember those little, like, those tutors where you put like the thing in there and you would turn it upside down? It was a bullet.
Oh,
thing?
hell yeah.
Yeah. You remember like ripping your buddies off and be like, oh, I didn't get me. Oh, I didn't get me.
Story of my life, dude.
Oh my God. You know what sucks? Like, those are the days that I don't miss, like looking at the clock at 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, right? Or Monday morning, like going, God, I just need to come down, like drinking and like, you know, going like, dude, if I go to bed right now, I'll get 4 hours of sleep right before I got to be at work. And then like trying to go to sleep and then looking and like, okay, if I go to bed at 2 hours, and then finally you're like, fuck it, Monday.
Dude, I know all too well. I know everything you're saying is just bringing back so much nostalgia. Just laying there like, there's no way I'm gonna sleep right now. Heart's literally just like this. Yeah. And that's where I developed anxiety. I remember going outside to smoke a cigarette because it was, you know, the end of the night. It was probably about 4:30, maybe 5 in the morning. So I go outside and smoke a cigarette.
End of the night? That's the beginning of the fucking morning. That's
all that to somebody who's been doing blow all night. That was the end of the fucking night. I thought I was dying. I thought I was, okay, shit, I done too much. I'm having a heart attack. This is what's happening. Essentially, it was an anxiety attack. And that's where it happened. And I'm not positive, but I didn't develop anxiety till about 21 years old, and which was at the pinnacle of my cocaine usage. So I was like, yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that all of that, because I wasn't a downer, you know, it wasn't heroin or Xanax or anything like that. It was the uppers. I wanted to be up, man. When I'm at a party, I want to fucking party. I don't want to be on the couch nodding off. I want to fucking, there was no better feeling.
I had some friends that were doing that, and I'm like, you just want to fucking go to sleep?
Yeah, I don't get it. Why are you nodding off? You literally nodded off in the middle of our sentence. This is fun to you?
Like, Monday night, let's party. What are you talking about?
Dude, it's fucking Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Let's go.
It's funny. There was only a couple times in my sobriety or in my drinking where I thought like, oh, is that weird? Right? Like, am I doing this weird? And one of them it was like, I was helping a buddy move on a Monday morning, and it was like, I don't know, I brought a 12-pack of Heineken, like I thought that was bougie or something. And I'm like, hey man, let's have a beer. And he's like, dude, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, oh, is that weird? Right?
But you're moving.
Right? Like I apparently everything was an event and a reason to party, man, whether it was Monday or Tuesday. And, you know, God, you know, you sprinkle that stuff on top and anything's a party.
You know, and just to reel it in real quick, I know people listening, or it sounds like we're like glamorizing the whole partying and cocaine thing. That's not the case, because, you know, you're fucking killing yourself. You're dying. Your body is literally deteriorating. Like when I'd go into rehab, people would be like, why'd you do coke, man? Who hurt you? What went wrong? And I'm like, nobody hurt me. Nothing went wrong. It's fucking fun. Have you ever done it? You know what I mean? That was your mentality, but at the same time, you're literally killing yourself.
I remember a number of times, you know, after, you know, a 2 or 3 day bender or even longer sometimes, I could look at like my hand and my arm and it had gotten smaller.
Yeah.
Like my body was consuming itself. Mm-hmm. Right. And you realize like, man, I haven't eaten in like 3 days. And
or seeing old pictures of yourself, like, fuck, I thought I looked okay. And everybody looking at me is like, this guy's got pale as a ghost, black eyes. My hair was stupid long. It was during my really, really rock and roll phase, you know. I'd wear no shirt with like the leather jacket, all that good stuff.
I went through the Good Charlotte phase, man, with the trucker cap, bandana, and the guy liner, man. I went through
Did
that.
you see Jason too? I never did makeup.
I had the guy liner.
I never did makeup, but I did do women's clothing. I did wear women's clothing, just not makeup.
Man, that stuff fits well.
I think
These
one of
pants are
the
stretchy.
sad photos that like I've gone back and seen recently was it was actually a vacation. It was out without my kids. It was around Thanksgiving, and I'm at Disneyland with my mom and some other family friends and stuff. And after going out to dinner, and I'm hammered at the hotel bar, and sure as shit, you know, big basketball fan and NASCAR. Brad Daugherty's there. It was NBA. If you go back and look at some Michael Jordan highlights, you'll see him getting posterized in the center. And I look at the picture, my head is so fucking bloated from how much I was drinking. And I'm tall and I'm slim, but my face is so bloated that, you know, and I look back now and I'm like, fuck, you know.
You ever just get you cringe when you look at it? You're like, oh God.
Yes.
Like what? Yeah, I mean, I don't miss that. I don't miss that at all, man.
Fuck no.
I think about that, it makes me cringe. I can remember feeling like there was just poison in my body, and like
because there was. That's what we were doing. You're essentially poisoning your body.
Yeah, it's amazing to think like, you know, it didn't dawn on me that something's wrong with, like, dude, you're fucking smoking glue. Like, what are you doing? Right. And so cocaine was kind of always present, right, up until the end of my sobriety. But meth, I remember I called my mom one time, and you know, my mom is kind of a black belt Al-Anon. She's, you know, 33 years sober, so she, you know, she's all in for the recovery, she's all out for anything else.
Right.
And so I called her and I said, hey man, I've been smoking meth, I'm hanging out with people I need to stop hanging out with. She said, come home. And it was the only time since I was 14 years old that I lived with my mother. And it was a number of weeks, and she got me spun dry and got me off of it, and I never went back. But cocaine was always present, man. But alcohol was always the thing, right? Like if I was doing drugs, alcohol was always present, right? If I was drinking, drugs weren't always present. Yeah. Right. And so, yeah, I don't miss that, man. Go and think now my head is spinning, remembering that life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the good stuff though, Cody, man. You know, sober, how did kind of like career areas take off for you? Of course, we spoke a little bit about you working with Five Finger Death Punch. You know, how'd you get into that? Subsequently, you know, you're working in another area now in your life, you know, having success. How did you kind of come about these things coming to fruition? I mean, was, you know, music an influence in your life, or, you know, electronics, entertainment? What was it that really got you kind of headed off to building a life? You know, because people, hey, guess what? If you're getting sober now, you can build a life. If you take all those resources you put into getting drunk, high, or whatever, trust me, you can achieve a lot of shit. And Cody, you're an example of that.
Yeah. So I think that, you know, music's always been a thing for me, man. I love music. I always, you know, played guitar, you know, and I've always been more attracted to like rock and metal, like that kind of a scene, right? And that being said, I'm pretty eclectic, man. I was listening to Enya the other day, and it was amazing. You know, it was definitely an influence. I never considered going into a career in music. You know, I don't really have a career in music, so to speak. I think my career is in, you know, in a different industry, and sure. You know, music kind of came into it accidentally. But I remember when I got sober, I got the honest perspective, and that, you know, we're all entitled to the honest perspective of who and what we are when we get sober. It's coming whether you want it to or not. And then one day it hits you, and I realized that I was an uneducated, out of work electrician. I didn't have a driver's license, clearly, because I had a problem enjoying that privilege. You know, I owed more money than, you know, when I got sober, I was like, I can't pay that off by the end of my lifetime, right? Like, I can't pay that off. And so, I went to school to be a drug and alcohol counselor because every idiot with 6 months wants to do that, right? And so I went and did that for a number of years for a fantastic place. And, they gave me an opportunity, and, I was making like 12 or 13 bucks an hour and barely supporting myself. I was newly married at the time, and we had just had a baby. And so when my daughter was born, I figured I need to grow financially. And so I was offered an opportunity in another industry, and from a friend, actually within the program. And, I had earned his trust enough to be a reliable person, right? And we were talking about earlier about, the pandemic, was I ever worried? I was always the guy before now, where like, if you got to furlough some people, that guy's number one, go get him, right? He is useless. And so I've earned a good reputation as being somebody dependable, and someone you can rely on, and they'll create solution. And so I was offered an opportunity, and I took it. And that's where my career is now. And I did that for number of years, and then the company sold to another company, and I didn't want to go with that culture. So a buddy of mine was the tour manager for Five Finger at the time, and I didn't have Five Finger who, right? And all I knew was they did that song Bad Company. And so one day he called me, and he said, "Hey man, you're not doing anything right now. I need a production assistant. You want to go on tour, just to say you've gone on tour?" And I was like, "Oh." And at the time, I was struggling with my wife, and I needed a break, right? I bought a home, and like everything was kind of relying on me. And so I said, screw it. And I walked in my bedroom, and I said, "Hey, I'm going on tour with Five Finger Death Punch, man. I'll see you in like 2 months." And so literally the next morning, there was a limo in front of my house, and off to Little Rock, Arkansas I went. And it's funny because Zoltan and I are really close now, really good friends. But my first day out on tour, we were just loading in, right? And lighting was setting everything up, and I didn't know what was what. It was 3 or 4 days before the first show, and Zoltan goes walking through and points at me and goes, "Hey, who's that?" And Brandon goes, "Oh, that's our production assistant." And he goes, "Come talk to me," and pulls my buddy Brandon, who was a tour manager, aside and flips out on him like, "You hired a guy without telling me?" And so he was telling him to send me home. And so I was like, "Oh man, boy, this was short-lived, huh?" And so I guess Brandon ended up talking him into keeping me. And it's funny, I reminded him of that, because we are close. We still talk every day. I still, work for him, and I lived with him for quite a while. And so it's funny. I'm like, man, if you would have had your way, man, we wouldn't even be friends right now. Yeah.
So you said you needed a break from your wife, and did she just feel the same way? Because when you said, "Honey, I'm going on tour with Five Finger, see ya," what was her reaction?
She's, God bless her. She's a fantastic woman. We are divorced now, just recently. In fact,
I'm sorry.
And so, she'll tell you that that was the best husband ever, right? The bank account was always full, and I was never there. And so, but she was a little bit nervous, like, "Oh, okay," but to that juncture, I had kind of guided our financial life, and the money was good, right?
Right.
So I was interviewing. I was in the middle of interviewing with another manufacturer to go work for them, but it was going to be a couple of months until that started. So I was like, "Hey, screw it, we'll supplement some income. We won't dip into our savings that gnarly." And so she was like, "Okay." And so I went on the road for 2 months.
Nice.
That's wild, man. It's a wild trip, but it's great. And thank you for sharing, to go from a house with 3 walls as a kid to these opportunities and having really built out a life for yourself. I mean, it's a trip to hear that same kid, the person born in this house with 3 walls, these other experiences, and like the responsible thing. Well, we don't have to dip into our savings. We'll get some. It's a good, it's like the total flip of to responsibility.
And you're
It's
living
funny
out.
because like I've earned that stuff, right? Like I've earned the money I have in my bank account right now, right? I've earned the right to not be broke and stressed when I have to pay the mortgage, right? And I've earned the right to have my car, my driver's license. My record is expunged. Boy, that was an interesting conversation with the judge that day when I asked him to expunge my record and all those DUIs, right? And I don't owe a single dime in back child support. And if you combine that with, what I owed the courts, I was never going to have another dime to my name in my life, right? And how do you earn that kind of stuff, man? You do the right thing and right things happen, right? And you work hard, you put 100% in 100% of the time, and like you can have those things, right? It's not a secret. Like success is not elusive to the people that go out and get it and do it, right? It's elusive for the people that think that it's passive, right? And so and don't be a dick. I guess that's like the biggest thing, right? And I mean, I might be one, but like be someone that like honors your word. And like these are all lessons that I was taught in Alcoholics Anonymous, and by doing the steps and connecting with a God that I do business with every single day, right? Which was, I didn't come here to talk about God, man. I just wanted to stop going to jail, and so you can absolutely have those things. You just have to work for them, right? And I've worked for them, and my daughter's never seen me drunk, right? I have a new son, and I hope that if I do enough today, I get to keep my sobriety date, so tomorrow I'll start off sober. And if I do enough of those in a row, then he'll never see me drunk either, right? My son Aiden, he remembers, and I make my living amends to him is that I take care of us, and I honor the relationship that we have today. And so,
Right.
Yeah, that was a rant.
I like that.
That was good.
That was a good fucking
That was a
rant.
good rant.
If we had an awards at the end of the year, that gets into the top rants.
There you go, man.
Fucking perfect.
Definitely a nominee, that's for sure.
All right, some quick questions.
Rapid fire questions.
You ready, Cody?
Yeah, I answers might be the same, but might not be. Who knows?
All right.
Cody, I'll start it. Cody, if they were to make a movie about you, who would you cast as the actor to play you?
Oh.
Oh God, that's a tough one, man. I don't know, man. I like Johnny Depp, man. He's a badass, right?
Yeah.
And he's in Hollywood Vampires, right? And so Johnny Depp or like James McAvoy, I really like him. Probably Johnny Knoxville though, man. He could probably actually
that's badass.
yeah,
Nice.
he could probably show people what my life was like. And so
It's funny.
not saying he had that life.
When you were talking about the boss that you had that like you guys would use together and like just beat each other up, I was like, yeah, but if it was filmed by MTV, it would have been a fucking success, So that's funny you mentioned Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Any pet peeves? Shit that annoys you?
Man, I guess that changes. People probably are a pet peeve.
Feel it.
Everywhere though, so I guess I got to get used to them. I don't know, man. I don't like people that don't do what they say they're gonna do, man. Right? Like if you're not, just at least tell me no.
Be real about it.
Accountability.
That's really been one that, like, I don't have compassion or empathy for people. Like the second or third time that you do that to me, like I'm out, man. I just don't have time for you, and I don't have that thing where I can forgive you and we can readdress our relationship. You do that, I'm moving on, man. I don't carry dead weight anymore.
Yeah. If you could travel anywhere in time, but you had to stay there, where would you go? Like you can go in the past 20 years, 40 years, 100 years, or in the future. What would you choose?
Oh God. I don't know, man. I really like a lot of 80s metal, man.
Yeah. And I mean, the way 2020 went, the way 2020 is going with the anal swabs, man, I think you might be better going in the past.
Where do I sign up for that? I don't know. Like, I would say the 80s, but you know, some of the most enjoyable years of my life were on tour. I think that I like the era of like the 40s, the 30s and 40s. I really think that that's cool. Like what was going on during that time, America was becoming America, right? The 50s and 60s, we really got to see like a lot of different like civil reforms and stuff like that. Like to be a part of stuff like that, big movements like that. I think that that kind of stuff is cool. I'm really attracted to American history. So there's definitely some time frames where I'm like, you know, that was cool to see, you know, what we did there, right? And,
Sure.
and that big industrial revolution, and then to see what was going on in the, you know, the 60s and that kind of stuff. And so those are the things that I enjoy. If I had to go back and pick one, I don't know, man. Right now is I am really grateful for my life. So I probably would stay exactly where I'm at because I love my kids, and I couldn't, I guess if I could take them with me, then yeah, I mean, I'd force them to go back in the 50s. They had some great 50s, 60s, great cars.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Damn, you're definitely in a couple nominees for best answers. I wouldn't go anywhere. I'd stay right here, man. I'm just like, all right, well, fuck, I'd take back my answer then.
See you in the 80s, buddy. Yeah. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh God, man, X-ray vision. So like, never mind.
Oh,
You know what? I wish that I could connect with people, like genuinely, I think, you know, instead of the way that I sometimes connect with people is, it's like we were talking about earlier, like playing a role, right? And then if I could connect with them and then be of service to them, right? And you got to give it away to keep it. With X-ray vision.
X-ray vision. Oh, Mrs. Johnson needs
Yeah.
help again today.
Yes, she does. Right?
Yes, she does.
Mrs. Johnson. Get spiritual, lady.
Cody, what's your favorite curse word?
Oh, fuck. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
Same.
Fuck.
same.
It seems
That was one of the
Right,
questions.
like there's so many. No, I mean, it has to be. I mean, I like some of the, you know, I say dumb shit, like, you know, just to throw people off, like balderdash and dumb shit like that. Like, right? And, you know,
Well, that's
like I say that to
ballyhoo.
my kids, like, you're, what's that?
That's ballyhoo.
Yeah, like, but fuck is great, man. That's a great word. And if you use it right, even in a business setting, it works, right? People are like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, this is true. Who would you say has been your biggest inspiration or mentor in life?
I mean, that's a tough one. I've had a lot. You know, my mother has, as you know, I'm a mama's boy at heart, and so I love my dad. We're really good. We have a great relationship. But my mother has really shown me what it takes to be a successful human being in life. Right? Like we grew up. I mean, in the ghetto, right? Like it was bad, and you know, she taught me about sweat equity, right? And you know, suit up and show up, and you know, find something you love, and the money will come, right? And she showed me how to do that, and like, you know, she lives in $1 million home now, and you know, and you know, she's owns like super bougie cars, and like we, you know, I grew up in a home where whatever we didn't finish for dinner got thrown into an omelet the next morning because we just needed to eat, you know? And so I grew up on spaghetti omelets and fish omelets and stuff like that. And so, you know, I have learned that from her. So definitely my mother. And then in sobriety, finding the God that I do business with was my first sponsor. You know, we don't have a good relationship anymore, oddly enough. But for the first 5 years of my sobriety, man, that man was vital to my recovery. I don't think I'd be sober today I wouldn't have found a God without him. That's for sure.
Yeah, Absolutely. Well, Mike, we want to give Cody the last word here.
Final thoughts.
So anything you can offer to anyone that's, looking to get sober, starting out in sobriety, maintaining, or even a family member, loved one of someone that, struggles with the same thing that we have, addiction.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know, man. The only thing I would say, I already went off on my rant, is, get out there and do it. There's, come freely, enjoy it, and join us, right? Like, so many people struggle with this thing. It's terrifying. And then you're going to, I'm the chairman of the board for our central office here, and our phone calls are through the roof right now. It has become such our call volume has increased over 1,000%, and because of these lockdowns, people are really struggling, and we can't help unless you say help, right? And to be fair, we won't help unless you say help, right? There has to be that form of surrender, and so. Ask for help, call your central office, speak to somebody that about it. And if you know that somebody's sober and reach out, you will be shocked the reception you will get. They are willing to talk to you about, this life that they have found in sobriety and recovery, man. And, I promise you that life in recovery is beyond anything that you can, understand, man. I live a beautiful life that I never thought that I wanted or would have. This is far better than I thought the best that I could get was, right? And so thank God things don't go my way, right? And so, just ask for help, man. We're here, right? Like we're all here. We're not going anywhere, and we will cheerfully reach our hand out. Showing thoughts of rhyme. I'm gonna come through and show my